Welcome back to the Talking with Tiffynee show. Thank you. It is Self Sundays, and on Self Sundays, we evaluate the self, right? And this Sunday, we are doing something where I think is huge because a lot of us allow these things just to run wild. And we're like, where are you going? Like little chickens, and they're all over the place. So today, we're talking about self regulation, and I have a special guest. But before we do that, we like to read a little excerpt out the book. So this part is in chapter one, and you can get this free at sisasitdoyou.com for the free chapter. And it's page 26. Prioritize your feelings and emotions. Focus on the things you have control over. In most cases, you have no control over what has happened to you. You are not your emotions or your thoughts. You can only decide that you won't allow them to define who you are. One of the healthiest things you can do is to accept that it is part of your life's journey, but refuse to let it take you off course. True freedom comes in forgiveness. I can honestly attest to that. It is my choice to forgive. Forgiveness is me, my power, back over the situation. The amount of strength that I gain and the ability to have a new perspective is worth more than harboring anything that does not belong to me. How many of us pick up stuff that doesn't belong to us? I have experienced some of the most treacherous betrayals, and it has come from everyone, including myself. During these moments, there were a lot of anger, resentment that had tried to reside in my heart. Since they had unpacked and made themselves right at home. I had a close friend recently hurt me, and during this time in my life, I could not understand why this was happening to me. I wanted to be angry, sad, hurt, and I was shocked. But I kept hearing this voice say, "Do you think that they know what they're doing?" And I had to take a step back and agree. The voice was the big homie above, God. But it was clear and it felt authentic. At that moment, I didn't try to negotiate with my feelings. I just took God's word and I issued out my forgiveness. I had to remind myself that that person I was dealing with wasn't a slight bit stupid, but they did have the ability to allow their emotions and their feelings supersede the truth. This behavior wasn't anything new to me either. So, with all the love in my heart, I forgave them and moved on. Moving on doesn't mean that we're all hunky dory and that I had no control over that. But I had control over my anger and my forgiveness. And you see, I don't like being mad at all. And I honestly don't think it's anyone is worth it to be mad at, especially when you don't know, when they didn't know any better. Sis, don't let them take you off course. Politely let them off at the next rest stop. And if it's meant to be, they'll catch up with you, hopefully. Harboring unforgiveness is like taking a drink of poison and hoping it will kill someone else. Anonymous. Guys, I get the pleasure and the honor to introduce someone that I feel is very good at regulating their feelings, especially in this new season that they're in. And so I'm introducing my great friend, Melissa Littleton. She is a wife, a mother, a daughter, a student intern, and a president and founder. And Melissa is here to talk about how she regulates herself. Welcome, everyone, Melissa Littleton.
Hi, thanks for
Hello.
having me. So happy to be here.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. You look so beautiful. You look so gorgeous.
Thank you, friend. I appreciate that. You too.
You look regal, like the 1950s.
I had to
I
dress
see.
up for your show, of course.
You're so amazing. Um, so today we're here and we're talking about self-regulation, and a lot of people don't recognize what even regulation is. I'm going to give the definition, but I was last week I was talking about self, and one of the things I said, and I'm going to start adding this when I say this to things. Anytime we add self to something, we limit the word next to it, and
Hmm.
so it's because it's like, oh, it's us, but when we place it on other people, they are supposed to expound in that definition when we are limited in what we see. And so, just everybody, regulation means a rule or directive made and maintained by authority. And self-regulation to me is a rule or directive that you've made with yourself and having authority of it because you're the person that has authority over you, right? And sometimes I feel like one of the things that we allow to just run free is our emotions.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as someone makes us upset, they're just like, phew, 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 phew. And you're like, hey, hey, get back here, get back here, get back here. And so I want to ask you, what are some things that you've been self-regulating with right now, like where you're just like, you know what, these are things that I'm like, I'm gonna pull back and I need to like add some rules and regulations to these things because I know they're out of control.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's more of the amount of things that I do right now and trying to regulate them all and trying to find the balance in life, I think is is really challenging. Just even today, I was coming on to this show. I have so much homework and so many other things to do. And my daughter's like, I want to play. Can we play after the show? Right. And I was like, oh, I feel like the mom guilt is heavy because I want to be able to pour all of the energy that I can into my kids. But I also want to pour all the energy that I can into my academics. And I want to pour all the energy that I can into the business, and all these different hats that I wear. And I think, I knew you were going to pull up the definition. So when I was doing a little bit of research to prepare myself for this talk, one of the things that stood out to me in the regulation, just regulation period, not the self, but it was like the control of the rate of speed. And so what is the rate of speed at which I'm trying to hit a target, right? And is that rate of speed aligned with my purpose through God? And am I trying to control? So I think what you were first saying about saying self-regulation is limiting to our own perspective, right? So, who really should be regulating our steps, our decisions, our thoughts, our time, right? And like how we disperse that. So, I'm actually trying to think about diving deep into prayer to try to figure out how I can have better time management, how I can set time for all the things and making it palatable. One of the things that I think is really helpful when you do a lot of things or you have big ideas, like say you have a full-time job but you have an idea, you want to be an entrepreneur, right? One of the things that I tell people because it gets overwhelming is just say, if I spend 1 hour, just dedicate 1 hour a day to thinking through this concept, it gets you to actually have action, right? Because I think often we're like, this instant gratification. Like I want it all. I want all the success and I want it now. Like I'm racing to it, right? And when you race to it, you run out of energy, right? And so the race is like you can only sprint for so long before you walk. And so if you're sprinting and then you have to walk, then you're slowing your progress. And so if you just make it more of a manageable jog, like what could that look like for you? And so for me, that's my biggest thing in self-regulation is trying to make sure that I'm prioritizing the most important time with my family and then just trying to divvy up my days.
That's so good, and I love that. I love that you actually see where the regulation is coming because I feel like you'll get people that can see it, right? But seeing and identifying are so different because when you identify with something, you label it. And a lot of people can see a lot of stuff going on in their lives, but they can't place the right label on it. So it's like now it's chaos because those are my trigger words and those are my quick label words. Like those are like in my file. I'm like, ooh, quick chaos. Don't like that. Ooh, drama. He's toxic.
Mhm.
I'm angry. You get what I'm saying? And I feel like, and that's a quick thing. Also, like you said, is quickening to everything instead of taking a step back and saying, what is this?
Yeah.
What is this? And one of the things I love that you said was, you said, like, with my kids and my homework and all these things. And sometimes as a parent, we can beat ourselves up for not being present in our children's life. And then we feel like it's a betrayal, especially if it's a betrayal to our little Tiffynee, right? When little Tiffynee
Mm-hmm.
said, I'll never do that to my kids.
Yep.
I'll never da 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 da. You know what, mom? I'll never. And so then you're like, I can't believe like I'm here and I know what this feels like. You know what I'm saying? But then understanding that the betrayal is just a feeling. It's just a temporary feeling, and you have to label it and appropriate it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, yeah, Tiffynee, you said you never would do that, but you also never knew what God had in store for you. So now you have to take a step back. And I was telling somebody last night, people always go, we always take 10 steps forward or 2 steps forward and 1 step back. That step back should be a step back like this, where you can observe what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the time, people take 2 steps forward, and when they take the step back, they turn around and they keep walking because what is back there is familiar. What is forward, I can't place a label on it. So now I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what it is. So it's too much.
That's
And
good.
I think that's what we have to give ourselves grace for things, because it's just like, why would you why would you put that on yourself if you can't, if you don't know what that looks like? You're like, you're just labeling something and you're just like, I don't even know. And I'm like, why does I don't know sound better than research?
Mm. Because there's so much fear, I think. There's so much fear in things that we don't understand. I think that I always say that no one wants to be corrected, and everyone wants to be right in a sense, you know? I mean, guilty of like wanting my perspective to be the sound perspective. But I think that we have to grow out of that point of view, because there's this quote that I use, and it's like what does it say? Your wildest dreams are like right the step behind your fear, or something like that. I can't remember it verbatim. But basically, it's saying on the other side of fear are our wildest dreams. But if we stay here, if we stay in comfort, if we stay where we've always been, even though we don't know how to manage, like, honestly, I'm doing so many things right now that I never imagined I would ever do, right? And there's so much fear in that. There's so much pressure in that. There's so much, I hope I do a good job. Like, I hope I'm doing my best. There's so much late hours that I spend trying to research and think about things because I want to have that sound point of view. But greatness lies in community, right? It's not like the individual. And so when you're able to lean on people and build your network and have biblical friends, have friends that you can talk through things with, right? And be able to ensure that you're thinking about things from all perspectives, and people can help you, right? You shouldn't have all the same people in your circle. You should not have all the same types of skill sets in your circle. Like, your circle should be differentiated, because it is a community in which to support you just as you are to support them. And so I'm able to pull thoughts. Like, I had a question about something. I was like, oh, I know this guy. He's a coach. Let me ask him. I'm going to ask this
Yeah.
person. What do you think? Right? Everything doesn't have to come from here. And I don't know where the pride comes, where everything is here. Like, oh, it has to be from me. And if it's not from me, it's not my original idea or whatever, it's wrong. No, community is here to help you. And I think if we can get past those fears of greatness. And I think there's a fear there too, right? There's a fear of unlocking your unlimited potential. And I think we have to regulate ourselves too on that. Like, regulate your fear.
Yes.
Like,
And
is your
you're
fear
so right.
preventing you? Yeah, go ahead.
Right. I feel like what you did was just create a rule for yourself. You created a new rule for yourself, and now you can regulate yourself within that rule, where you're like, I don't know everything. My community is my greatest strength.
Yes.
Like, and you created that rule, and some people don't have regulation like that. They don't have a rule, and then they don't have rules to begin with, and so then they don't put themselves, or they don't recreate rules or evaluate rules so they can be regulated within them so they can function. And I love
Mhm.
that you have created that, and now you're functioning within that regulation. So the feelings of, well, my first answer is right, you now have said, okay, it's not, it can be greater. It's just an idea, and someone can build off of that. And some people don't even have that in them to let their pride down and stuff. And I want to touch on this is because a lot of people, I will say this, usually get connected with a person that can move them forward. But what happens is pride or ego usually happens, steps in the way, and then you get upset with that person. And I read this quote in my book, and it says, harboring unforgiveness is like taking a drink of poisoning and hoping it'll kill someone else. Like, the entire time you're like, oh, I'll get it myself, bump them, and da 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 da. And it's like, what are you? They've already succeeded. You're the one that's failing because of your inability to regulate your feelings, your inability to label, like, oh my God, was that my pride? Or did I think I knew better than them when I was seeking them for help and I was seeking them for guidance? Or maybe I didn't, they don't know what they're doing. And I talk about that, how people can hurt you and they don't even know. Like, they don't even know that they might have said something arrogantly to you or made you feel little because you didn't tell them or you didn't give yourself the time to be like, why am I feeling like this? So I see a lot of people struggle with that, and even unforgiveness with themselves.
Yeah.
Because when you make a bad decision,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying, and then now the younger version of you is dying, and the older version, you think the younger version of you is dying. Well, bump that dream, and really the older version of you is dying because you're not allowed to live that dream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, self-forgiveness is hard, right? Especially when we want to amount so much, or we put so much responsibility in individualistic mindsets that we have to hold everything up, right? And it's not like it's necessarily a negative thing. It's just culture. So culture, we live in a culture of individualism, and so we put a lot of weight on our individual abilities to do things. And then when we cannot, or we fail, or we make a mistake, we're so hard on ourselves because we're supposed to know how to do it all. And so when we can kind of take a step back from culture, just kind of, you were saying, like, take a step back and really think, because I think when we move through our lives with emotion, and then we don't know how to separate that emotions aren't facts, they're just your
Right.
feelings, right? And that came from TD Jakes. I'm going to give that back. That's not my original, but it's not a fact. And so because it's not a fact, we cannot make decisions off of it. So, like, the example that you gave about, oh, someone said something arrogant potentially to you, that was your mentor, and now you don't want to work with them. And now you think you're hurting them by no longer communicating, but they're already winning. So they didn't need you in the beginning. They were helping you because they want to help the next generation. And so you had some sort of expectation. And that's another thing I think we should talk about with self-regulations, because I think that's the hardest thing to manage in your emotions are your expectations, and the expectations that you don't communicate. And I recently had a situation where I was expecting a lot from something, and I didn't clarify. And I was going to meetings and I was getting madder and madder and madder because I felt like, what am I gaining here? This isn't what I thought I signed up for. And what I realized in retrospect is that because I was so frustrated, I then spewed my frustration to others. And then I then spread poison to their minds, right? Or tried to. Tiffynee ain't listening to me when I complain, but I was spreading energy and I was spreading my perspective. And not to say that my perspective wasn't valid for what my needs were, but because I did not express that and I did not align that expectation with the organizer, it was unfair of me to be angry without a conversation. And when I had a conversation, now my expectations are being met, and it's outside of the space, but that's okay, right? But I had to get to the point, and I'm so grateful for friendships like Tiffany's, because we talked about this and she was like, Melissa, you're doing the most. Pretty much, right? And you need friends that'll check you, because we talk about self-regulation, but I think it should be community regulation. Because if you have a strong friendships, you have strong relationships. I have a strong relationship with my husband. They can check me, they can tell me when I'm wrong, right? But if we don't create those communities, when we're unable to regulate ourselves, who regulates for us?
Right.
Yes.
You're absolutely right. And so, I I brought that up, and I'm going to put that up because that is a good tip. We're going to come back to that because it comes in with our last thing. And so I was about to ask you, and you actually went into it. Was how do you regulate your feelings and emotions? And so, funny thing is that Melissa didn't know that I unfluffed her secretly. And with me unfluffing her, she allowed me to do something. And so, just showing people, everybody, what unfluff or no fluff looks like. It's first the thoughts that you feed yourself, and so Melissa, and we'll go through this in a second, and then it's expectations and assumptions that you attach to that underneath that, and then understanding your real feelings underneath that, and then underneath that is understanding accountability and asking questions and giving some time for patience. And then underneath that is growth, peace, and love. And when you clear the cup, you can see where you're going. And so the cool thing about what happened with Melissa in this situation is that her things that she fed herself, right, um, were because she had been in a program like this before. She had been something similar, and so that was her thing that she had fed herself. Like, this is, hey, I'm jumping into something I've done this for, and she had to take that off. And we had this discussion, and she had to take the fluff off. And then underneath that, it was her expectations and assumptions that were attached to her being in a program, because the programs that she was in before were flourishing to her. They fed her, and she likes to eat. And when Melissa likes to eat, she likes to eat good. Like, she likes to eat. Not like, not going to no restaurant for no whack crap. She's like, I want to eat good. And her expectation and assumption was, I'm going to eat good because this is a similar program that I've been into. And so when she took that off, her real feelings were, this food tastes not to my liking. This what I'm getting from this program is not to my liking. And I feel like my time is being wasted, and I feel like my value is not being met, and I feel like I have other things to do. And she was going through this, and then she took off that fluff, and we had a conversation, and I asked her, I said, have you asked any questions? Have you will you give some time for patience? Will you come to another meeting? And that's the patience. I heard Michael Todd say, I think it was Michael Todd, he said, patience is, or were the Jerry Flowers, patience is not knowing what's going to happen, basically. Like, being able to wait through that, right? And so I said, will you have the patience? And then I said, will you ask good questions? Will you ask questions before you make an assumption? And then I asked her, I said, will you listen? Will you understand? Because she just had to figure out like where this was. And what she said is, through that, when she asked the questions and all that, growth and peace happening. And now Big Boss Melissa right here, I call her big time. Because this I'm not going to profess what I know she is on here, but this is something great. She can now see where she's headed. And I don't think a lot of us recognize that we can unfluff ourselves. And that literally gives us the ability to regulate our feelings. Hold on, guys. Something just happened. We have a little spammer in here. Hello. Sorry.
I don't know what
Okay,
happened.
we have a spammer in my thing, so I'm
Oh,
trying to
okay.
figure it out. Um, but yeah, so what I was saying is that once she emptied this out, she can be able to see where she's going clearly. And I feel as if people don't have good tools for themselves. And so when you
Yes.
have something like this, it's just like, and a lot of times you have to unfluff a lot of things, even sometimes the simple things that you think that have no time for. And I really think, if I could really be honest with you, the cup is like, the fluff or no fluff is like God. You going to God and asking Him to regulate your feelings, regulate your emotions. Come to me and tell me where I'm supposed to be. Come to me and take all these thoughts that I have that are I've captivated in my head, that I'm not supposed to be holding on to, that I'm not supposed to be having, you know. And like Paul said, take every thought captive and apply it to the truth. And that's the thing. It's like, as you start taking these out, Melissa asked me to do this, start throwing this.
I know.
As you start taking these out, you start realizing like, this is not even true. Like, as Melissa was thinking, like, this isn't like, why would I take the same program again? That's dumb. This program is new, and she had to see that. And then she was like, and my expectation, God has something greater for my expectation, right? And then when she talked to the person, her questions were expounded by her level of understanding. So then they were like, we're going to take you outside because we think you're greater than that. And as she's sitting there about to meet with something huge, and we both know this, she's able to see where she's going. And God is saying, I am the light to your path. You cannot see if you're clogged up. And you have to understand that unfluffing yourself is so huge, but you have to have the tool to unfluff yourself. And that's where we're going to get into what Melissa just said was community regulation, because you need regulators in your life. You need people that are going to come in and be like, hey, 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 well, I thought, because if you already have your list of rules and a person knows this, like your biblical friends and your kingdom friends and your true friends, your friends are going to apply your truth and the truth to what you've set for yourself, the rule, the directive that you've given for yourself to move forward, and then to tell you, hey, you're out of regulation. You're not where you're supposed to be. We need to line you back up. You're full of fluff right now. We're gonna unfluff you because this is the task and the job that you've given me. And a lot of people will give this, they're Indian givers. They'll give this task to somebody and then they're like, nah, you don't have the right to do that. So I like that you said that, because community regulation is important, and a lot of us shy away from that because of all the things above, where we're just allowing everything to be out of regulation, even our emotions connected to people when they tell us about the things that we need to regulate.
Yes. Yes. And I think, this is a good example of that, because when I was like, lost my patience, I messaged you like, I'm done with this. Am I being an asshole? And you're like, yeah, you are. So you need people that'll tell you the truth. You need people that aren't yes people, but they're people that want you to win. And winning doesn't necessarily have to be financial or whatever, but your best version of self is winning. Your peace and happiness is winning. Your strength in your family unit is winning. You pouring and releasing, actually, let me say, you releasing and breaking generational curses off your family so your children don't have to suffer is winning. And so when you go through this like fluff or no fluff, and you really think about, what are my emotions and what do my emotions stem from, because really the point of it is the root isn't always what we see, right? So as you go through and you take out all your emotions and your expectations, what was really at the bottom of that? What was the foundation of my emotions, right? Like, is that this situation, or is it something else? And so when you really start thinking through that, and you have the types of friendships that can help you get to the root, like maybe it was little Melissa. Maybe little Melissa felt like people disappointed her. And so she's like, seen this before, pivot, not doing this, right? Like, I don't know exactly. I haven't gone that deep on this one personally, but really it's the root. It's like, what is it? What is it that's causing you to have all these emotions that you're unable to regulate? And is that keeping you stuck? We want you to be unstuck, right? We want you to
Right.
continue to move forward. And the only way to move forward is to have strong community, and being able to have the discernment to pause and to seek help. Because if I didn't seek help, if I didn't message Tiffynee my attitude, and we had a long laugh about it because I made it all a joke, but I was really upset. And if I didn't seek help, if I didn't seek counsel, if I didn't seek community and whom I trust to help me solve this problem, I would be in the same mindset, because that was the space that I identified that I was unable to self-regulate myself.
Yeah.
And
No,
that
you're
takes,
absolutely right.
go ahead.
No, no, go.
I was
I
just
was
going to say
grabbing
that takes
something.
maturity to like know that. And I think that's a new level of self when you're like, hey, I can't solve this one alone. I can't get out of this headspace. I can't shake
Yes,
these feelings. So I need to go talk to somebody, right?
yes, yes. That you're right. And I love. I was gonna say you said I haven't got there yet, and I was. It's funny because if you turn this over and it still has the fluff in, you can see that sometimes you might have to fluff yourself, where you have to put the thoughts back in there because now you have to figure out where they came from. And sometimes you need somebody also to do that, where you have to say, okay, well, I'm successful. That's great. You know what I'm saying? And this happened to me and you the other day, where it was me that had the problem, and we did it backwards because I had actually gotten through the issue and stuff, but I was trying to figure out what about the issue was bothering me. And so we had to start unpacking the opposite way. And so as we started unpacking, I had to get down to, well, I asked the questions, and Melissa then started asking other questions and saying, well, she said, well, where are your feelings in this? And then from that it was like, well, what was your expectation and your assumption? And then I said something, and I said, because I didn't get to da 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 da. And she said, ooh. And then we flipped the cup back over and immediately unpacked it. We unfluffed it. And sometimes you need a partner to fill you back up and to help you unfluff because you don't even know what happened. Because sometimes we're so quick to empty ourselves out that we don't understand what is causing it. And like she said, it's usually rooted in something. So this is usually rooted in something because it's weighed down by something, sealing something. So I love that you can do both ways. And sometimes people don't even have the courage to do that because they got out of something, but don't understand that it's affecting something further on. And through
Yeah.
that, I was able to apologize to somebody about a situation, about my tone in a situation, not my reaction, but my tone. And they were like, oh my god. They then were able to, like, they got it. And and a lot of us don't have that maturity, and we don't have that and we don't have friends like yourself where you were like, I think you need to go back and just reevaluate. And reevaluate was, you didn't even put your input on it. You didn't say, well, you need to say this, or you need to do this, or you need to do that. It was just, I need to go back to my rules and my directive. Take that step back and say, who am I? What in that, did it represent me well? What parts of that didn't represent me well? Because I can go back and be corrective. I can go back and edify myself. The editing button is always open on all apps.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
And so we have to be open to do that and allow people to be like, hey, you messed up, go back, correct that. And some people think it's going back and taking it down or erasing it or removing it. And it's like, no, you just need to edit it. And I think as
Mm-hmm.
people, that's all God is trying to do is edify us.
Yeah. And I think another thing I want to say about the fluff or no fluff is there, we can graze over it quickly. Like you said, like if we just unpack it, we're like, okay, sorry, move on. But if you don't get to the root, and I think this is why I might have to revisit this with you off the call, but if you don't get to the root, it will reveal itself in another way, because the root is the problem, is the part of you that needs to grow. And it doesn't matter the situation or the environment that brought it, right? Because if it was this with this expectation in this group, right? But it could be something else tomorrow, but the root is the same. And because I didn't get to the root, because I didn't face the root, because I didn't face my younger self or whatever it is, that now I am going to have a challenge to regulate myself in the future, because I know that this is that same thing. And I think often, at least for me, um, one of the things I'm trying to shut off of me is avoiding problems, because I don't like conflict. I don't think anybody likes conflict, but I think some people might be a little bit
Right.
better than me in conflict. And I am guilty of just avoiding the problem, sweeping it under the rug. Um, and because I've observed those things and because I've done those things for years, sometimes it's hard to get to the root and actually solve the real
Right.
problem. And so we have to
Right.
also like check ourselves in that and say, it might feel comfortable to just say sorry and to move on, but is that the right thing that you should do? Should you be getting deeper? Should you be solving whatever traumas are inside of you that are now triggered by different events? Because what happens if you don't heal yourself, you bleed on people that didn't cut you, and you continue to just
Right.
have those types of situations. And so how do you stop it? You only can stop it if you can see fully through the cup, right? If you actually deal with all the levels.
Right. And you know what? You just said something. I didn't even think about that because some people will just get to a level where they unfluff something and they think because they can push a little bit down
Yes.
that they can see. And it's like, just because you can manipulate the crap in you around does not
Ooh,
mean that it can't affect what I pour in here.
that's good. Hmm.
Because even if I pour some water in here, I can't drink it because the fluff has soaked it up, literally. The fluff has taken my what's supposed to be nourishing to me and my body and it's soaked it up in its issues. And a lot of times we don't even think about that. And we're just like, oh, I can go ahead and pour into me. And somebody I was talking to somebody last night and they're like, man, I just feel like I made a bad decision with this thing that I did. And I said, they said, well, why? They said, because all these bad things keep happening. And I said, or could it be God is draining you from what you were used to? Because He can't pour anything in you if you're still allowing all this stuff to affect you. So maybe that's
Hmm.
what He's doing. And she's like, oh my God, I never thought of it like that. And I'm like, why would we think He would contaminate Himself with other things when He's like, I'm trying to make you new. So if I mix it with something old, is that new or is it hybrid?
Mm,
And am I looking for hybrid or am I looking for new?
mm,
And so sometimes we don't even think about that because it's just like we made hybrid cool where if you mix something in two and some things are like that, but some things God is like, no, that's not new because you're still connecting some of your old bad behaviors, thoughts, and negative things that you're attached to what I'm trying to do new in you, and you won't allow this to be emptied out because you keep manipulating it, pushing it down, either adding more or moving it to the side to fill other stuff up.
yep. No, that's good
So,
tip. Hybrid. Hybrid. I hadn't even thought about it like that, but that's so true. That is so true. And I think what we're talking about here is like it's not easy. And so I don't want it to sound easy or intimidating to everyone. Just like I said before, like if you just dedicate a little bit of time to self-reflect, right? I was talking about time management, but hey, I'm going to spend an hour or I'm going to spend 30 minutes or I'm going to spend 20 minutes. It doesn't even have to be that long every day and reflect. Maybe I'm going to journal. Maybe I'm just going to sit and think about how my day was and what my interactions were. Was there space for me to
right.
be better? Was there
Ooh,
space? Did I handle everything right? Am I really thinking about how I'm going to be better tomorrow? Because you don't just wake up better, right? It's intentionality. And if you are not intentional in your routines on how to be better, you will remain the same. And
you're
so what
absolutely
does
right.
that look like? What does that look like for you? And remember, it's a jog or it's a quick walk. It's not a sprint. You're not going to transform your life tomorrow, but you can incorporate habits that can help you reach your destination, right? If you journaled for 15 minutes every day and really reflected on what you did, and then, oh, I wish I wouldn't have communicated with Pam that way. you know what, next time I'm going to be intentional about what words I use. And then the next day you have a different interaction. Maybe you have a celebration report. Maybe you're like, man, I was able to do this better, and you just continue and continue and continue. And it's like those blocks that just help you build a new structure. And I think that
Yeah.
you just have to put it in the bite-sized mindset, because if you think of it as this whole concept, like, I'm going to be the best person, I'm going to do all this healing, I'm going to be able to regulate myself, my emotions are not going to drive my decisions. Look, I've been trying to regulate my emotions for years, and I just had this expectation problem a couple weeks ago. So it's not like you ever get to this optimal performance, but I think as long as you're reflecting and continuing to grow and leaning on your community, you can do these things. You can. But it's
Right.
just about putting the time in every day and really just thinking about, what does that look like?
Right. And it sums into how we end all the shows is, have you asked yourself lately, sis, is it you? Or bro, is it you? Child, is it you? Teenager, is it you? Is it you that needs to do this and not everyone else? Um, and the last thing I'll say is that the cheat code to life is fixing yourself first, because you usually are a reflection to what others want to be, and that's what you can do. And I think we're working on that, and we're works in progress every day. And this is why that's so important, where we can come and tell you a recent example about how we are regulating things in our life, but how we also are using the tools that God has given us and applying them right. And so, just to end, last part of my book, it says self realization doesn't happen overnight. It will take time, like you said, and practice. If you use these tools habitually, it will become a habit. And like
Mm-hmm.
she said, just little by little, and take your time. Thank you guys so much for joining me and my special guest, Melissa Littleton. I will see you again next week. Have an amazing Sunday. Self Sunday. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you.